Of course, you may have heard Donald Trump's not the only one who's had a bad week. Led Zeppelin is in court this week defending themselves against plagiarism charges, which is tough news for album-oriented rock fans out there because September could become compensatory damage jewelry.
In the timeless words of Stairway to Heaven, there are two paths you can go by. When it comes to the origins of Led Zeppelin's classic songs, there may be more paths than they let on. The legendary rock band has long faced allegations that they stole or borrowed many of their most famous tunes from other artists without giving proper credit. Today, we'll take a closer look at the songs in question and the stories behind these rock and roll mysteries. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You.
There's so many aspects of our imagination that can be brought out in the music and in the lyrics that this is the stimulus that keeps us together.
One of the standout tracks on Led Zeppelin's 1969 debut album, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, established their signature sound, an epic slow build from gentle folk strumming to hard-rocking bombast. But this song has a complicated history of its own. It was originally written by American folk singer Anne Breeden in the late 50s. Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, however, first heard it via Joan Baez's 1962 cover version. On the original album, Led Zeppelin merely credited the song as traditional, arranged by Page. This was technically incorrect since Breeden had authored it, not simply arranged a traditional tune. In Page's defense, Baez had also mistakenly listed it as a traditional song. It wasn't until decades later that Breeden became aware Zeppelin had covered her song. After some discussion, all parties agreed to list her as a co-writer and split the royalties going forward. Dazed and Confused. Dazed and Confused is one of Led Zeppelin's defining songs, but its origins go back to before the band even formed. In 1967, a Greenwich Village folk singer named Jake Holmes released a song of the same name on his album, The Above Ground Sound of Jake Holmes. The young Jimmy Page heard it when Holmes opened for Page's old band, the Yardbirds. A couple years later, Page recycled the song for Led Zeppelin's debut album, keeping the title and most of the music the same while adding new lyrics. For decades, Page claimed to have been unaware of the original Holmes song, an unlikely story given the similarities. Holmes declined to pursue it legally for many years. As he put it, quote, "I said what the hell, let him have it." In 2010, however, he finally filed suit. The case was settled out of court, and recent Zeppelin releases now credit the song as written by Jimmy Page, inspired by Jake Holmes. Whole Lotta Love.
I haven't liked a single thing that they've done. I hate the fact that I'm ever even slightly compared to them.
The opening track on Led Zeppelin 2, Whole Lotta Love, pairs one of Page's most iconic riffs with Plant's lascivious howls. But those lyrics didn't spring entirely from Plant's libido. They were heavily inspired by You Need Love, a 1962 song written by legendary bluesman Willie Dixon and recorded by Muddy Waters. The similarity was so strong that Dixon sued the band in 1985. The case was settled out of court, and Dixon is now listed as a co-writer. Plant later admitted he'd lifted from the original song, but downplayed it as a minor borrowing. Quote, "I just thought, well, what am I going to sing? That was it, a nick." Now happily paid for. At the time, there was a lot of conversation about what to do. It was decided that it was so far away in time and influence that, well, you only get caught when you're successful. That's the game. The Lemon Song. The Lemon Song is a classic example of Led Zeppelin taking lyrics and music from multiple sources to create a new hybrid. The title and lyrics reference the 1937 Robert Johnson classic Traveling Riverside Blues, which includes the memorable lines, "You can squeeze my lemon till the juice runs down my leg." But the music itself is a clear lift from the 1962 Howlin' Wolf song Killing Floor. Unsurprisingly, this caught up with the band legally. They were sued over the similarities to Killing Floor, and for a time were forced to list the song as Killing Floor on some pressings of Led Zeppelin 2. Eventually, the matter was settled, and the band now lists Howlin' Wolf, whose real name is Chester Burnett, as a co-writer on the Lemon Song, while keeping the lemon imagery in the title. Since I've Been Loving You. One of the band's most searing blues workouts, Since I've Been Loving You, wears its influences on its sleeve, quite literally. The lyrics lift several lines nearly verbatim from the song Never, released just 2 years earlier in 1968 by San Francisco psychedelic rockers Moby Grape, a favorite band of Plant's. The Moby Grape lines, "Working from 11 to 7 every night ought to make life a drag," became "Working from 7 to 11 every night, it really makes life a drag" in Plant's version. Perhaps he assumed that reversing the hours would be enough to throw away any would-be copyright lawyers off the scent. Still, while undeniably similar, this is one case where Zepp did thoroughly transform the original, building it into an epic, slow-burning blues. Bron-Y-Aur Stomp. Jimmy Page has long cited Scottish folk guitarist Bert Jansch as a major influence on his acoustic playing. On Led Zeppelin's third album, that influence goes perhaps a bit too far on a couple tracks. The gentle Bron-Y-Aur Stomp is clearly drawn from Jansch's version of the traditional folk song The Wagoner's Lad. Another track, Black Mountain Side, strongly echoes Jansch's Down by the Blackwater Side. While Jansch never took legal action, his Pentangle bandmate Jackie McShee called Page out, saying, quote, "Jimmy Page took it and made it into another song, and they haven't given Bert any credit for it as far as I know. It's a very rude thing to do. Pinch somebody else's thing and credit it to yourself." Hats off to Roy Harper. The closing track on Led Zeppelin 3 was named as a friendly nod to the band's pal, folk rocker Roy Harper. But the meat of the song comes from another folk blues hero, the Mississippi singer Booka White. His 1937 song Shake 'Em On Down provided the bones for the Zeppelin track, although they thoroughly electrified and psychedelicized it. On the album, the writing is credited to Traditional, arranged by Charles Obscure, a Page pseudonym. It's a cheeky move, essentially saying, this is a traditional song arranged by someone you've never heard of, wink wink. Booka White was still very much alive when Zeppelin recorded the song, but never took action over it. In My Time of Dying.
Time's going by for me, but I'm still having a really great time, and although I'm not an adolescent, I have an awareness which I'm quite proud of.
The epic 11-minute centerpiece of Zeppelin's physical graffiti, In My Time of Dying, packs some of Bonham's most thunderous drumming and Page's most searing slide guitar work. But for all that, it's credited solely to the 4 members of the band. In fact, it's a traditional gospel blues song that had already been recorded by many artists. The first known version, Jesus Make Up My Dying Bed, was recorded in 1927 by blind gospel blues artist Blind Willie Johnson. In 1962, a young Bob Dylan cut an electrified version titled In My Time of Dying for his debut album. Neither Johnson nor Dylan held a copyright on the song, as it was already considered a public domain traditional. While it's an undeniably powerful performance, Zeppelin's claim of authorship is shaky at best. Stairway to Heaven.
Now, I've listened to both songs, and I'm not sure Zepp ripped them off, but I gotta say, it makes me wonder. Ooh, really makes me wonder.
Perhaps no song better exemplifies the Zeppelin plagiarism controversies than their most iconic anthem, Stairway to Heaven. The 1971 masterpiece features some of Plant's most mystical lyrics and Page's most delicately woven acoustic and electric guitar interplay. But its opening descending guitar line bears an uncanny resemblance to the introduction of Taurus, a 1968 instrumental track by the psychedelic rock band Spirit. Spirit had opened for Zeppelin on tour in '68 and '69, so Page was certainly familiar with their music. The similarities didn't go unnoticed. Their bassist, Mark Andes, and a music journalist remarked on the likeness soon after Stairway was released. But no legal action was taken at the time. It wasn't until the late 90s that Spirit's founding members filed a copyright infringement suit against Led Zeppelin over Stairway to Heaven. It made its way through the courts for years before being decided in Zeppelin's favor in 2020. Now it's time to hear from you. Did Zeppelin really steal all these songs we covered from other artists? How does it make you feel about their music? Let us know in the comments section below.